So I'm really excited about this process, as folks who know me probably know. It's on? Okay. And my comment actually comes off of what Janice and Michelle were both saying, and I think that the way that Jeff was talking about that this is, that the campus needs a way to anchor how to go forward is a very good one. And I've been thinking about the ways in which the groups have been put together, and they're mostly put around content areas. But I can't remember who it was who said, it was Michelle, right? 5 years from now, who knows if that's the question. 5 years ago, we weren't asking about memory. Well, we were, but it wasn't as widely as it was before. So one of the key things, as you're saying, Janice, is that the questions we have now aren't the questions we have 10 years from now. And that makes this a really tricky issue. So one of the nice things about bringing together the different, starting with content areas or content interests, is a good place to start, and this is more perhaps of a comment than a question, but certainly can take it as a question too, that what I think would be wonderful if the steering committee is able to produce in the spring is something that not only provides us with some interesting things to do right now, but provides larger guidelines, let's say, blueprints for the campus in ways that are really interesting and exciting in 3 different areas. One is to identify those intellectual questions, those scholarly questions that are enduring, that regardless of the particular question or the particular discipline that's asking that we know that it's thorny enough, it's relevant enough, and it's complex and rich enough to human life, to social life, that we'll always be pursuing it within the campus, within the academy. So, and we can't do all of them, but to identify those few really enduring questions that are important. Janice, that I think was one of the things that you were just talking about. That's one way to talk about an enduring question, the relationship between human communicating and technology. But if we could come up with a handful of those, I think that would be wonderful. Not all of them that maybe even we're interested in, but a few that really would allow us to be distinctive and unique and make a contribution. The second, so one is enduring. The second is to identify some large problems. Ones that, again, are tricky problems, perhaps even wicked problems, that cannot be answered by any one discipline or with any one question. And I think these are some of, we don't have representatives here, I think, for some of these, but things like health is an easy example for something that's large. I would say even something like the enduring issues the problems, why we have journalism, right? So democracy, representation, public voice, those are large problems. And I think that the more that we can have concrete problems, ones where we bring people together to have to solve it. This is, I think, what RACI does in their institute. How do we get together renewable energy? So those large problems that people who like to do concrete things can get their hands around, if we can identify a few of those, I think that would be a great contribution. And then the third is some structures. I haven't heard very many ideas about what structures need to be in place in order for us to protect the vision, to protect the idea that we're supposed to come up with. And that's actually a question I do have for you, Michelle, as you were saying that your committee is, or your discussion group is talking a lot about how do you make sure that in 5 years we're still cutting edge. And I think that's an important question for the entire entity, is what structures do you put in place to make sure that what you do today is interesting, can still be interesting 5 years from now. And that's one thing that I do see missing from this process, is how is it we talk about structure. So those 3 things, enduring questions, big interdisciplinary problems, and then structures. And on structures, one thing that I would add is always interdisciplinary, but that's my bias.
I'd like to add something to that. The idea of theory and practice, that this could be, if you want it to be, also about experimentation and providing a structure or an environment for people to experiment. Since we don't know what the future lies in ways of technology, we seem to always be behind the curve, but why not have a place where we can also, it will be where it's open-ended. Questions, in other words, create an environment for questions we haven't yet considered, based on things that we make. So you would have people in computing science, electrical engineering, working with artists, dealing with things like multipath narratives, different ways of telling stories, based on the uses of current technologies, but also taking the idea that there's more than just a linear way of thinking about storytelling. But there may be other ways of storytelling. So I would say that, again, the one thing that this could be about is the idea of the model of sort of like basic science and applied science. That there's a lot that you could be doing which may or may not have applications, but in the process, you learn something about media and technology because you're always working with it. You're not just reacting to it, you're also making it and being a part of it and working with it in these various interesting ways.
I'm Pete Simonson from the Department of Communication. I'm a member of the convening group with Janice's media, mass comm discussion group as well. Sort of, I've got a sense, obviously, is what's going on in our conversation. I wondered if everybody at the table would mind just saying a few words about two kinds of things. One, what topics, problematics, interesting ideas you're hearing, what you're talking about. We've gotten some of that so far, but it might be nice for all of us to hear that. And then kind of related to that, the letters that we have in our call. You know, last year it was ICT, and then an M got added, and then more recently a J has gotten added. And so I'm wondering which of those letters are central or are parts of your conversations kind of across the board, sort of thinking about, you know, what big ideas, architectonic, you know, pathways, whatever, might be emerging from the alphabet soup we've got now.
And I'll let each group respond, but two things. So some of the groups are really just getting going and may not have very much to report. And I'll take blame for the alphabet soup. We just have not, you know, I'm tempted to just call it, you know, the College of X, so that we don't have to worry about the names. The reason why there's a constant proliferation of words in the title is to indicate that we are trying to be as inclusive as possible at this point in our conversations. That is, we're not prejudging that somebody shouldn't be part of this conversation. There are clearly units on campus that have no interest in this conversation and will not be part of the conversation. But if they came to me and made a logical explanation about why they should be included, we would be happy to listen to them. But we spent a lot of time worrying about the labeling, and I hope everyone believes genuinely that what I'm interested in, what the provost is interested in, what the chancellor is interested in, is the education of our students and the work of the faculty. The labeling is important because it's part of how we set ourselves in relationship to the world. But we need people like Brett to help us what the correct marketing terms are. The intellectual work isn't reducible to any of these kinds of categories. But if anybody wants to take the first crack at where they are in their conversations.